So we've just got a few panelists joining us today. We've got another one still to join, which hopefully we'll be able to once we get going. But to start off with, thank you so much for joining our webinar today on what skills are law firms looking for in their future trainees. So this will be a panel session. We have a fantastic panel of experts joining us today to share their advice. As you'll hear, they're all either sort of practicing solicitors or working in HR, involved in the recruitment of trainees, and are all very much involved in nurturing those entering the legal profession. Thank you to everyone who's registered to join the event. We've got quite a varied audience, so I know some of you are sort of undergraduate students, some might be graduates already, some might already be working with studying with the college. So yeah, quite a varied background, and some might also be working perhaps as a paralegal or internationally qualified already. So I've tried to take into account the pre-submitted questions from when you registered for the event, and we'll try to cover as much of those as possible, but we will be just trying to keep to the topic around skills. But if you do have any further questions, I'll be emailing everyone tomorrow with a recording of the session. So feel free to come back and I'll help you with anything else that you do need to know. Closed captions have been enabled, so if you need to access those, you should be able to as well. So to start us off, if I can get our panelists to introduce themselves then, please. Egbe, you're first up on my screen, so would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Egbe Manton. I am a current practicing lawyer in-house. Also have a background at Silver Circle law firm in the private sector. And I also, with other lawyers, run an organization that is tech-enabled and AI-enabled that works with aspiring solicitors and helps to support them into law. But we also work with junior lawyers to help them get to that partnership GC phase quicker.
Brilliant, thank you. And Saima, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Saima, and gosh, I was thinking about this. It's 14 years since I qualified, a very long time. I'm a qualified practicing lawyer. I'm currently in the area of commercial litigation, but I actually qualified in civil litigation, and I'm in a management role as a consultant solicitor, as well as a supervisor and graduate solicitor apprenticeship coach for COLP. So at the moment, I'm working with various firms, doing various roles, but enjoying the COLP role, which I've been doing for quite a while now.
Brilliant, thank you. And Salma, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Salma Maxid. I'm the current president of Bristol Law Society. I'm also a partner in the commercial property department. I've been qualified for 18 years now. Also a social mobility ambassador for the National Law Society as well. So yeah, great to be here today.
Brilliant, thank you so much, and great to have you all here joining us today. So then, let's start looking through sort of the questions and having a deep dive really into sort of skills. So from your sort of perspectives then, what does a strong future trainee solicitor look like today? What sort of skills and behaviours and attitudes do you think really matter to law firms? Salma, would you like to sort of pick up on that first?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, when I'm looking at applications, well, actually, let's go back to the actual question that you've asked. Solicitor, looking for a good kind of positive attitude, a curious attitude, somebody who's quite proactive, good to ask questions, a clear communicator, both written and speaking. And I think, I used to hear this buzzword all the time about commercial awareness, and I never really understood what that meant until much later in my life. But I think definitely an aspect of commercial awareness. And by that, For anybody that doesn't really know what that means, it's kind of knowing and understanding what's going on economically, just in the real world, about running businesses, and knowing that actually clients, it's not all just about applying the law, it's actually understanding the client, the business that they are in, and helping them to problem solve. And so the legal part is a small aspect, but I think overall it's really all about problem solving, and taking and understanding the client's business. So I think, that kind of curiosity with good attitude, communication, and definitely the overall commercial awareness.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Egbe, would you sort of agree with that?
Yeah, I would. The way that I always kind of see it is just in order of priority, because I think, if I'm honest, we're asking a lot from aspiring solicitors in terms of what they should be or skills that they should possess as a future trainee. And so I think it can sometimes overwhelm aspiring solicitors as to, what does good look like. So I would say, in order of priority, definitely commerciality is important. As an in-house lawyer, we go out to law firms, and when we're thinking about what law firms do we take on, we're looking at juniors and seniors who can understand our business, just as Sama was saying. And so for you as an aspiring solicitor, it's important that you understand, how does a business work? How does a law firm work in terms of, revenue and margin, and what does that all kind of mean? But also for you, the second thing I would prioritize is, yes, commerciality is important, but I'm going to say it because we're probably going to talk about it a lot during this session. AI competency is going to be huge. And I would say, if I was an aspiring solicitor now, in my spare time, I would be playing around with different software and different programs, and doing that when there's not pressure. Because when you become a trainee, there's going to be an expectation that you're going to envelop that within your day-to-day practice. So for now, I would say commerciality and AI is definitely something future trainees we're looking at in terms of future trainees.
Brilliant. That's a great point, Egbe. And Saima, anything else to sort of add to that?
Yeah, I would absolutely echo what Egbe and Salma said in terms of commerciality. I'd also add in strong work ethic, interpersonal skills, and really, I'd say a passion for ongoing learning. The law is constantly changing, whichever area you're in, and you should be prepared to undertake ongoing training and not sit on your laurels and be like, I'm an expert, I'm done. Always be curious and continue with the learning.
Yeah. And would you say that you've seen any particular skills that are lacking in like trainees or junior lawyers, I guess, when you've been supporting them? Or
Yeah, I mean, I've looked after and supervised a lot of trainees, and I'd say one of the ones, a key one that I've noticed, the difference between trainees who have had a job alongside their studying, whether it be legal or, working as a chef or a waitress, etc., versus those who come in having never worked in a part-time role. There is a big difference in work ethic, and it's a bit more of a shock to the system. And unfortunately, it's harder to get that work ethic and maintain it once you're in a law firm if you don't already have it. That's one key difference that I've noticed.
Yeah, that's a good point. Salma and Egbe, what about yourselves? Anything sort of lacking in trainees, in particular skills that are coming through?
I would definitely echo that, but also I would say one of the things that we see is lacking is, I would say, a mindset aspect. I think people expect when they get over that, aspiring, trying to get that training contract, everything's going to be amazing and life is going to be good. In fact, it's just the beginning, and you've got to know that. And I'm going to be real with you, it's going to be, the first couple of years are going to be tricky because you're figuring out, I've got to reach a certain level at the firm, but also I've got to, I'm being tested all the time. And so you have to have what I would say a positive mindset. There's going to be stuff that goes wrong. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to send emails to people that you shouldn't. And that's a normal part of being a trainee, but it's about how you bounce back from that. That's going to be important.
Yeah, brilliant.
The only thing that I would add to us, what you both have said, is I think also, don't be like, I find people are very reactive, whereas I I think those that, I get this a lot. People are very, trainees come in, they're quite reactive. And actually, I think somebody said to me once when I was just starting out, stop waiting. Don't, what are you waiting for? You're waiting for permission. You don't need to wait for permission. If you've read something and you think, your mind is logically going to the next step and you think I need to go and do a bit more research about this, or actually, what about this? Then just go and do it. And don't just wait. Don't just wait to be told what the next step is. Actually take initiative. And that's kind of, and it always plays in my mind when I'm and eyeing about something. I'm thinking, what am I waiting for? I'm waiting for permission. No, don't. Just take the initiative. Just go out and do it, and have a proactive mindset.
Brilliant. I like that. That's great. And Salma, I know sort of Simon had already mentioned about, perhaps if you've already had experience even as sort of, outside of legal practice, but there was lots of questions coming through from those registering for the event that are really wanting to know how, like, students or paralegals even can sort of start developing their skills either during studies, if that's the case, or those sort of early steps into legal practice. Have you got any sort of take on that, on how you can start developing those skills?
So I personally, I worked throughout study. Been working pretty much since I could work. So I think but it's not, sometimes it can be tricky because there is a lot of pressure on students nowadays. And I totally respect where some students, they feel that they must just put their mind down and it's like one step at a time, and they want to get their studies out of the way and then go on and then work. So it's not always possible to hold down a part-time job and also study full-time. And having done it, I know it can be a real, it can be quite difficult. So I think like a nicer, or perhaps a more gentler way of going out and getting those kind of that kind of experience, it is possibly, networking. And again, it's a buzzword that's thrown around a lot, but actually it's really easy to go away and join your local law society and attend events there. There's lots of events for junior lawyers. You can find that you often have courses where you can go out and you can, speak to each other, and that will help you develop as a person. It will help you develop your confidence. So far as the technical skills are concerned, I'm not sure if many people know this, but the National Law Society at the moment, they have a Get Involved program as well. So you can kind of like join committees. There are small programs. So there are like small projects which you can actually feed into. So if you have the time, you can actually sign up to those and feed into those projects. And of course, there is always, if you do have the time, then you could go away and do some work experience. If you do, and one of the things that I did, I couldn't find any, unfortunately back then I couldn't find anything paid, but there was a local lawyer on the high street, and I would go in on a Saturday morning or on a Thursday afternoon when I had a free period, and he would just set me some tasks. And whilst I didn't get paid, it did mean that I was working in a very, it was a sole practitioner. I would go in and just help with the filing and just kind of get that office feeling. So I think, there's lots of different ways you can do this. And often if you ask, local law societies or national law society, or even, some local firm, they have initiatives where you can just go and you can join in.
That's brilliant. That's great advice. Yeah, like you said, there's so much out there, and I guess it's individual circumstances, isn't it, of how much free time they might have to do different things, but there are different options out there. Egbe, what about yourself? Is there anything you can suggest as well for sort of helping to develop those skills?
I think this is the way that I did it. I always allocate myself every month what I would call like a training budget. Like, so think of it this way. So rather than from a monetary perspective, think of it in terms of an hours perspective. So if you've only got like 3 hours every month or 3 hours a week, allocate 1 hour or 1.5 hours to you sowing into yourself and investing in yourself. And that could be you doing a virtual work experience with a law firm, or it might be you undertaking some of the actions that Sama was talking about, or it might be you going on Udemy or College of Law or wherever or the College of Legal Practice to then build up a skill that you might not have. So it might be a foundation AI course, or it might be a course on better communication. And you'll find over those 2, 3, 4 months that your skills will improve because you're being very meaningful about, investing time into your development.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's really good. I hadn't thought about the way just focusing purely on the skills as opposed to focusing on sort of work experience, for example. Simon, was there anything else that you could think of? Sort of
Yeah,
helping to promote
absolutely. I
this
was going to
training?
say the Law Society has a lot of free online courses. So, as they were saying, more available than when I first started out. So, I'd definitely have a look at them. Volunteering, as Selma was saying, going into law firms or just volunteering elsewhere as well, because it gives you exposure to different types of people, which when you do start in a law firm, one of the biggest challenges is managing the different types of people that are there and the characters, etc. And working in a completely different environment will help in that way as well. There's local law centres that you can work at, or like I said, non-law work really helps.
Yeah.
I used to work in a call centre, and it was a catalogue one, and I hated being on the phone after that. But I realised it taught me so much about managing clients and different customers that I could actually transfer that when I first started out in my law firm role.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I mean, some of the questions that we had coming through as well is how people can kind of make their application stand out. So I guess Simon, with that kind of experience, like how would you articulate that you've got those sort of relevant skills?
Yeah, absolutely. So be highlighting those transferable skills, really. And like I said, any work environment, doing the volunteering, you could, if you've done any courses, mention them, what you've learned from those courses. I'd also say in terms of applications, um, I'd make sure you do them specific to the law firm and the area of law and not make your application generic. There's a tendency for, to make as many applications as possible, but we can spot a generic copy and paste from a mile away. Whereas you can spot the ones that have got a genuine interest, so make it specific. So if you've got a passion and a keen interest in a particular area, demonstrate that in your application.
Yeah, that's great. Um, Salma, is there anything else that you can think of that how to make sort of an application like really stand out to firms?
So I'm all for using, AI to help you for an application. But, again, just coming back to Simon's point, you can spot it. It's really, especially when that's what you're doing day in and day out. So if you are going to use any kind of form of AI to help you with an application, can I please just say, please actually pay attention to the actual firm that you're applying to. Research the firm. Don't do just I've had a quick look at the first page of the website. Like, take a real interest. So one of the things that help, or I do actually suggest to people when they are applying, is if there are firms that you think, oh, actually this is like my top choice, or actually I really want to get into that firm, then I don't think there's anything wrong with sending somebody like a message, for example, on LinkedIn, and just saying to, a junior there, or would you mind, like, would you be happy to meet for a coffee, and then draw on their experience. I mean, lots of people, there are a lot, people will say yes and people will say no to that coffee, but it's not an unusual ask, and it gives you a real insight into that firm, because you also want to work for a firm that's going to work for you as well as a person. So it's not just, let's just send out lots of applications. Look for something that's going to work for you. So, and make, I really do encourage speaking to junior lawyers, because they will give you an unfiltered, this is what we think and this is what it's like, and maybe this might not be the firm for you, but I worked at this other firm, and they are, in my experience, I found that people are genuinely quite happy to give back like that and help others, get onto that career in law and find a firm that actually works for them. So, and also my one thing, I'm, every time I get this, I'm surprised, but I have a copy and paste job into an application form where you can see that it's been lifted from ChatGPT, and it actually puts it on the bottom, ChatGPT. So, I am constantly surprised how many of these I see. Don't do it. Please check the formatting, and do your research.
Brilliant. Thanks, Salma. Egbe, is there anything you can suggest for helping sort of an application to stand out? And I guess we've touched on AI from your perspective. Is there a way that it can be used in a helpful way, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to AI. I just think people are very lazy when they're using it, right? It's just, oh, draft me an application form for this particular law firm, right?
Mm.
And instead of doing that, what we tell our candidates to do and the people that we support is start with your own research, right? And then you can use AI to kind of if you've put together a draft to kind of attack your draft and say, look, you've missed this particular point, or you need to do some more research around this. It's more of a, I would say, a protagonist as opposed to you just being very lazy and saying, write something for me, because we review a lot of application forms and they all sound the same. It can be soul destroying when you get to application 650 and you're like, it's all the same. So what I would say is two takeaway tips. The first is if you go through your draft and you could replace the name of the law firm with another law firm and the draft still works, you're not detailed enough. Okay, it's too broad, it's too generic. If you can't, so for example, if you're doing an application form to Freshfields and it's so specific that you're talking about a particular Freshfields deal or two individuals that you might have had coffee with at Freshfields, now we're kind of talking at the level that you need for you to get that past that first application phase. So if that's my tip one is if you can replace the name, it's too generic. The second thing I would say to you is, and this is quite unconventional, but this is what I say to my candidates, which is if you are going after a law firm and this law firm is going to invest, let's say 50 to 100K in you as a trainee, is your answer that you're putting into that law firm worthy of that salary? So if you're looking at your answer and you're just saying things like, oh, I love the culture of the law firm and I love the fact that, you're given responsibility early on, that's all great, but it's not specific enough to that law firm. What is it about that particular firm that has struck you compared to its competitors? And if you can't answer that question, should you really be put through to the latter stages? Probably not.
So I guess a lot of time and effort to put into each individual
100%.
application there as
Like
well.
we see that people that are spending time doing 3, 4, maybe even 5 drafts of one application are doing better than individuals who are just copy paste, send it on to the firm.
Mm. I'm just thinking as well, obviously, if someone is doing their studies at the same time as well, it is just so much additional time on top as well. Um, is it worth just trying to plow on while someone is at an undergraduate sort of stage, or is it more beneficial to kind of have a break in studies after, sorry, a break afterwards and perhaps work for a little bit as well?
I mean, I'm just, I know there's others will have views on this, but my view, having worked with different types of candidates, it depends on the individual, right? For some of you, you'll have time in your schedules to be able to allocate some time towards this. For others of you, you might have caring responsibilities, a job, plus, SQE studies or whatever else, and it's intense. So maybe for you, the best thing might be to wait until you're a paralegal or until you've cleared your SQE studies or whatever studies you're doing, and then focusing on that. But you know as well as I do that if you've got 6 hours to sit on Netflix or talk to your best friend about the latest, episode on Drive to Survive, maybe we should maybe use some of that time to allocate to applications. So it's just you thinking about what is the priority for you right now.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Um, we were going to talk about actually, we had lots of questions from those that are sort of career changers, which at the college we have a lot of people that are perhaps looking to go on to our conversion courses and then go on to sort of studying for the SQE, perhaps some that otherwise have been perhaps working as a paralegal for many, many years and sometimes coming at it quite a bit later in life of then looking at like trainee contracts and opportunities that way. Salma, just wondering, like, how can those in that sort of career changes type situation, or those that are the stereotypical recent graduate, how can they sort of identify and really market their transferable skills then to law firms?
So I didn't get a I didn't get a training contract straight away after university or my LPC, in fact. I sent out lots of applications, and back then I'm sure they were probably very generic applications to lots of firms, which is why I didn't get a training contract straight away. So I went away and I just basically got myself a job. I actually had two jobs at the time. I had one in a law firm for a while, just in a claims department, and then because I'd still not got a training contract, I think 2 years later I went away and got a job in the legal department in-house for a jewelry organization, basically. And then, you know, I came to the point where I was thinking, I've invested all this money myself. What shall I do now? You know, it's going to be a bit of a waste if I don't actually have a real career in law. And one of the things I remember doing at the time is again like all the sitting down and writing a list about all the skills that I had gained from the two jobs that I had basically done after, or like literally all the skills that I could think of. So I think Simon mentioned earlier on that about from the call center. I mean, I also did a stint in a call center as well, and oh my god, what it teaches you about how to be on the phone. I mean, you know, there was that communications. You write down I've got communication skills. If you've managed a team, you can talk about the team. If you have had to draft documents, you can put down the documents. But it's actually, first of all, just sitting down and actually listing, because they might not all be relevant, but the chances are a lot of them probably are. Write down all the lists and then think about it. How can I transfer this into a law career? And in my view, I don't think any of those skills are wasted in a legal job. Any kind of job that you do, you will pick up skills that are all transferable in law. You know, what are we looking for as law firms? We're looking at good communication. We're looking at good people that can come in and can get along with other people. They can work in a team. They can also, work. They can also be proactive and take the initiative themselves. Good communication. Did I say that already? Probably said that already. But I mean, in writing as well, clear, kind of like being able to draft and things like that. So, and not just then, but take it one step further and then apply it. So don't make it hard for the firm that you're applying to work it out themselves. I mean, connect the dots, right? Mm-hmm. So actually set it out. I've got good client care skills because I worked in a call center, and these can be transferable when I go in and see clients in a law firm. I'll be able to communicate with them, or I have managed a team of 4 people in this department. So actually connect it and set it out. So the other person, they don't have to work hard to figure out where, lead them through your application, lead them through, this is what I've done, this is what I've gained, and this is what I'm going to bring to you. As somebody who's, I've not just wasted my time. I'm going to come in and this is all going to be for my benefit. And can I just say, I found that a lot of people that have made career changes, they are like well-rounded lawyers because they come with this whole other skill set, from whatever area it was that they worked in previously, and hugely beneficial for firms as well. So don't miss out on those opportunities.
That's really good. Simon, have you got anything else to add, do you think, to that?
Yeah, to be honest, I was nodding away because my experience is very similar to Salma's, where I didn't gain a training contract straight away. And I look back now, and I at the time I was so impatient, wanting that training contract. It was the golden ticket. But the work that I did as a paralegal prior to that was so invaluable. I was involved in the business. I ended up getting a training contract at a firm that had started new. So we were all chipping in and understood so many areas of the law firm as a business. That's a transferable skill if you've worked in a completely different area. I'd say things like managing deadlines are hugely transferable for a law firm. Advocacy, so it might be that you, in your previous role, you were presenting a lot. That really helps with advocacy skills and management skills. I was, managing a team quite early on, and large teams quite early on in my career, and it's easily transferable. I actually personally took a career break after I had my second child, and then went from one area of law to another. And yes, while you can learn the law, the reason why I was able to transfer to another area was the skills that I'd learned in management, managing deadlines, etc. They were key rather than actually knowing the area. And that's what I was told when I actually changed into commercial litigation, that we're actually not bothered that you haven't worked in this area. It's all those other skills that you have and have gained that will take you through.
Brilliant. So it sounds like a lot is to do with really demonstrating you know, the experience that you do have and how that's relevant. Egbe, do you see
Absolutely.
many sort of career changes?
Yeah, quite a few actually, and more so I think now than I have in the last kind of 5 years. But yeah, I think what Sama and Sama said what was bang on, so I wouldn't add anything else to that.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And I think we've probably mentioned a few of these things already, but sort of given the flexibility of QWE requirements now as part of the SQE route to qualifying, wondering sort of how individuals can progress their legal experience to help secure a training contract or another route, you know, some sort of entry level route into a firm where they can start gaining QWE. Simon, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the work that I do at the moment, there is the apprenticeship scheme, which is a great route in which it allows you to work and study en route to qualifying. It's tough. You're working, you're studying at the same time, but what I'm finding is it's a great route instead of, you know, the LPC, for example, and then waiting. A lot of the apprentices that I have been working in the law firm for a while now and have chosen that route, and it seems to be working well.
Yeah, that's great. And for those that sort of aren't too aware, you know, there is an apprenticeship scheme available for solicitors. It is employer led, but you might find that there are firms who, rather than just recruiting for their traditional training contracts scheme, they will look at recruiting on an apprenticeship scheme. So well worth doing some research at those. Salma, what about yourself? Anything else in terms of gaining that QWE? I know you've mentioned a few things earlier.
So one of my one of my very good paralegals actually qualified using the QWE route, and one of the things that I always found her doing is she kept a record. She kept a record of the work that she was doing in the office as a paralegal. She had printed out the QWE. It's like a spreadsheet or a table from the Law Society's website, and it would always be on her desk, and she would basically put in if she when she was given a task, and she would look at her sheet, and if it matched any of the competencies in the sheet, she would immediately diarise it. And basically she'd put in a little entry of what she'd done, so she has, you know, a record of all the competencies that she's gaining as she went along. And then if it were, for example, a written piece that she were doing, she would then print it off and it'd be attached, and it was like a little folder basically on the side of her desk. And I thought that was a really good way of doing things, and also very organized. Much more organized than what I was at that age, I just want to say. So, and I was totally in awe of her, can I just say. And she was incredibly disciplined, and she would stop for her lunch break, give herself 15 minutes to eat, and then she would log on and do SQE training online. I just want to say. And then again, finish lunch on time, have a 5-minute walk outside to get fresh air, back at her desk, and then, you know, any kind of good task. I really think it's a great idea to keep a record as you go along. It only takes a couple of minutes, but it does mean that you can then very quickly, you know, what areas that you might need more work on, and then you can ask your supervisors for that work. You can say, I'm running low on my competencies, can I, you know, get something perhaps from this area? And, you know, that then again ensures that you're proactive and you can get that experience like that. And the other thing is, I would also say it's never too early to kind of seek out a mentor. Lots of mentorships, you know, mentoring schemes are out there. Lots of organizations offer them. And I do think it's quite good to kind of seek out a mentor as well, just to kind of keep you on track, help you with the QWE. And also with mentors, they normally have contacts as well and connections that can also be drawn on to perhaps give you some experience in another area, or to kind of get that exposure, I guess.
Yeah, that's great. And it's a really good point about sort of logging that QWE and taking that responsibility that, you know, this is my evidence that I need to sort of collect and be able to diarise that so you have that to pass on. And I know you can gain QWE through voluntary work as well, so there are kind of other options as opposed to the training contracts. Egbe, is there things that you could recommend that people consider?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, look, there's a reason why, these alternative routes were set up. It's because training contract is not for everybody. And also the numbers of training contracts are reducing each year. We see data that supports that. What I would say is, regardless of the route that you're choosing to qualify or thinking about qualifying down or pursuing, I would have those open conversations with the firm or the company that you're working with. And I say that because law firms and companies have had to adjust in terms of the numbers of individuals that are now qualifying. So not just down the training contract route, but also if you're doing QWE, there has to be a position for you once you have gone through that, and you're going to be expected to become an NQ or whatever else. And so having those open conversations throughout your QWE route or your apprenticeship route is helpful. And I would also echo Salma in saying that a mentor is really important, especially at the firm. And I would take some care to think about who that might be, because when you're going through that QWE process or the apprenticeship process or what other process, you want to make sure that you're positioning yourself at the right time, so that when you're finishing your apprenticeship or whatever else, you've got the right people on side who can then back you and say, yes, he or she should definitely become a qualified solicitor here. And I think that's important.
Yeah, great. And Egby, what do employers do you think now sort of expect from newly qualified SQE trainees compared to sort of previously? Have you seen that there has been much of a shift?
Do you know what? I'm going to say a pragmatic answer and say yes and no. There has been a shift in that we have seen law firms, particularly global law firms, are expecting a certain level of efficiency from their newly qualifieds. So, and some newly NQs do really well with this and others not so much. Literally the next day when you're qualified, so some of them who've just qualified now in March are finding that all of a sudden they've got to be able to like bill and have great utilization and understand firm metrics and literally overnight. Whereas other law firms, they're giving their NQs time to kind of adjust. So it just depends on the law firm that you're in. And so when you're thinking about training contracts or you're thinking about apprenticeships, think about what law firm do you feel is going to support you in the way that you need it to. So for me, I love being thrown in at the deep end. So throw me in and I don't care. But for some other people, it's not the case. So do have a think about what environment would suit you best. But there definitely, I think, has been a shift.
Yeah, brilliant. And Salma, I think this probably feeds in a bit to what you were saying about speaking to those already in legal practice, perhaps newly qualified solicitors, about the sort of companies to work for. Would you sort of agree with that still? So
absolutely,
what the company expects.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Egbe has said. That's exactly what it is. It does depend on what law firm you work for. So it's so important to actually go out there and learn about the law firms and have conversations that with people that work there. And I do find that the juniors are doing this a lot. Especially, I don't know about wider, but definitely in Bristol, there's like a whole kind of network where, people from different firms, they will, everybody will kind of meet up at any particular venue, and they will share with each other, oh, this is what's happening at this firm. And actually this one is probably, again, it's just that research, isn't it? It's about getting to know the firm, because you're going to be there for a long time, and qualifying, it is honestly just the first step. It is a hard first step, but it is just the first step. And then there's a lot of hard work after that as well. So it's really important you set yourself up and you've got that forward thinking mindset, and you've planned out, okay, this is the route I want to do. This is what kind of firm that's going to work for me. This is where I'm going to get the support if I need it. So that's the kind of law firms that I'm going to apply to. And that's incredibly important for can I just say that is important from your own mental health and well-being perspective as well, because you don't want to suddenly find yourself in an environment where, wow, you qualify one day and expected to know everything else the next day. That's a lot. But if that's an environment that you thrive in, fantastic. But if it's not, that can it can be really, really difficult. so yeah, I would definitely say go out and do that. And I'm just going to go back to one of Egbe's points from earlier on. I do think it's a good time to be playing around with like AI and legal tech. So that was a really good point from earlier on. I think that you've got the time right now and you've got the tools and you're able to play around with it, get comfortable with it, figure out how it works, think about its weakness and what you can add and how you can make the best use of it. Because especially, I mean, I'm pretty old, so I have to ask my daughter to help me with my iPhone, right? So people, and I'm not generalizing, but I think is kind of an expectation for any kind of trainees or junior lawyers that said that they must know everything legal tech and AI, whether it's true or not. I just want it's kind of like a thing that the younger generation are totally on top of it. So do play around with it, do learn about it as much as you possibly can. And the only thing I would add to this, which I say to my daughter all the time, is take an interest in world events and what's going on in the economy. It shapes so much. So there's lots of podcasts out there that you can keep up to date with your politics as well. I think it's really good to be aware of what is just going on, because businesses and clients will expect you to be aware. So it's a good habit for you to get into from now, I would say. Allocate half an hour to just check in with the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's obviously something that people can be doing. If they're studying as well, just keeping an eye out on that and taking an interest as well. I'll just have a look see if there's any questions that have come through in the chat. I know some questions just relating about the apprenticeships that we briefly mentioned earlier. Because the apprenticeships is a government funded scheme, there has unfortunately recently been a change to the level 7 apprenticeship program, which is the one that would include SQE preparation for becoming a solicitor. And so unfortunately you do need to be under 22 now to enter onto that program. But obviously there are still different trainee schemes that involve supporting people through the SQE as well. That's still there, but that is how it stands currently with the apprenticeships. Let's see what else has come through. So there's a question saying firms ask about the use of AI for training contract applications and what is the best approach an applicant should have when using AI. So I'm not sure if that means perhaps some ask whether they've used it during the application or during an interview. Any advice on that?
I'll kick off if that's okay. So we've seen a number of firms. So some of you will probably be familiar with Shoesmiths, Freshfields, A&O Sherman, who are actively asking about the way that you're using AI in your application forms. Be honest, right? And tell them how you've used AI. And this will kind of force you, I think, to think about how you're using AI in your application form. If you're saying to the firm, look, I'm using it to give me some ideas, but then I'm checking the credibility of the sources from Claude or whoever it is that you've used, then that's absolutely fine. But obviously, if you feel uncomfortable saying, yes, I got AI to draft my whole application, then maybe we need to change the process that you've used for your application form. But I would be very honest to the firm and let them know that if you have used AI, it shows that you are using outside sources, but you're being critical in your thinking and making sure that you're, that the answers that it's producing is truthful and there are no hallucinations. And firms actively, we've literally just on LinkedIn done a post about A&O Sherman and Freshfields, who are asking about, the process that you would undertake in a fictitious situation of how you would use AI. And so it's going to be on more and more application forms. So now is the time to address the way that you use AI in your application forms and to do it in a way that's not just efficient, but also helpful to build your skills.
Yeah, brilliant. And I mean, like you mentioned earlier, you could use it for proofreading and checking, what you've already written in your own words anyway, but polishing it off. But you could also use it to help you with your research. There's lots of different ways that you could use it as opposed to complete this for me or create this generic thing for me. So someone's asking about the best way to approach getting a mentor. I think, Salma, you mentioned about sort of networking and the different mentor schemes that might be out there.
There's lots of mentor schemes out there. So I guess the first place I would probably suggest that people look are at their local law societies, because they often, different committees with local law societies will run different schemes. So junior lawyers might run a scheme. Women lawyers I know run a scheme, for example. Then there's like a general one for, basically for each kind of committee. And sometimes, so also the National Law Society also runs they also run mentoring scheme as well. I think they run a few under different headings. So, for example, one of them is their diversity access scheme. So you go through a process and they will match you with a mentor depending on what you're basically looking for. Then there's also kind of organizations as well. So you have association. So the one I've just seen this advertised on LinkedIn, so this is why it's come straight to my mind. But for example, there's the Association of Muslim Lawyers that do this, and again, similarly, like other kind of like associations like that also offer mentoring schemes. So I think if you plug this in to Google or ChatGPT, you'll probably find that there's lots. There's lots of these opportunities around to get a mentor. If you didn't want to go through an official mentoring scheme, but you had, you have seen that, there is a certain person that you would like to get some mentoring from, then drop them a message. Because, some people will do informal, I do informal mentoring. They will do that. I also do mentoring via Babasa, who are like an organization for young people, basically. So there's lots of schemes out there. So I think it's and I'm sure the College of Legal Practice also have a list of mentoring opportunities possibly that might be around. So yeah, just ask. If you ask and if you look, hopefully you'll find something that works for you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Salma. Yeah, sounds like there's lots of different opportunities out there then. There's a question about if A levels are required for securing your training contracts when someone has a degree, and how to fill it in on an application form. I don't think normally if you've gone up to a degree level, that A levels as opposed to O levels would be a requirement. It may just be one particular firm has a glitch if they don't accept that. But probably best just to check with the firm that you've looked at, I think, for that. Really great question about sort of advice for applicants that do have sort of chronic illness, long-term health conditions, but obviously really keen to work. How could they best sort of navigate applying to firms? If anyone's had any experience with that?
I would say, obviously, just be honest from the start. Maybe look at firms who offer hybrid work or remote work. Research particular firms, and yeah, just from the start, put it on your application. It shouldn't hinder. I've worked with people in the past, and this was pre-COVID, where it was all office-based, who had chronic conditions, and adjustments were made, and there were no issues in terms of their work output at all. So yeah, honesty is the best policy, but also research firms and what type of work practices they offer.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Sam, I think that's a bit like what you were saying earlier as well about, selecting the types of firms that you're actually interested in, the ones most appropriate to connect with.
I think it's really important to be transparent up front. And also just to add to that, if you did want any kind of advice, then I know, for example, the Disabled Solicitors Network at the Law Society, if you were to drop them an email, I suspect they could probably put you in touch with someone that can actually have that kind of conversation and probably give you a mentor as well. That has, they can talk from their own lived experience.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So that was another good question that just come through. Yeah, in terms of gaining sort of relevant work experience, or I guess maybe even mentorship from outside of the UK, is that possible? And you can, in terms of sort of qualifying work experience, to then be signed off through the SQE route, you can gain qualifying work experience from outside of the UK. It does just need to be signed off still by a UK registered solicitor. in terms of if you're already internationally qualified, though, there might be different exemptions. So well worth exploring the SRA's website just to understand your options there sort of relevant to your own experience, really. Lovely. I think some of the questions I perhaps might need to come back to you about at a later date and send some further information over by email. So I think it would be great if we could kind of wrap this up with sort of one piece of advice for someone hoping to secure, say, a trainee role in the next, coming months or year. Salma, I'll start with you. What's the one key takeaway you think that they should be focusing on?
Don't give up. If we're doing one each, then my one is don't give up, just persevere if this is really what you want to do.
Brilliant, that's fair enough. Saima?
I would say do as much research and work experience to find out what area of law you actually like and will suit you, where you'll find the most fulfillment in your career, because it's a long career and you need to enjoy what you're doing.
Yeah, brilliant. And what about yourself, Egbe?
I would say if you want to become a trainee or an apprentice or a paralegal, then you need to start acting like one. So your time should reflect your intention. So if you want to go and be a trainee, then you need to allocate good quality time to becoming one, which means being ultra organized.
That's great. Thank you so much. Well, I think we've covered some really great questions there, some great advice from people. So thank you so much for everyone for joining today. As I mentioned, the session's it has been recorded, so I will be sending this out to everyone probably by sort of tomorrow morning. And so then if there's any further questions that we haven't managed to cover or sort of slightly outside of the scope for the session, please do just reply to that and I will come back to you with any information that I can pass on. So, but for now, thank you so much for everyone for joining, and thank you particularly to our panelists as well for giving up their lunch breaks today.
Thank you.
All right.
And good luck, everyone.
Bye.